Hey, you've probably heard this one. Just add some distortion. It'll make your bass sound huge. So you drop in a drive block on your HX. Suddenly, your tone's gone. The lows vanish, the mids honk, and the drummer's looking at you like, dude, where'd the bass go? I'm going to show you why that happens and how to fix it using my Line 6 Helix. By the end of the video, you'll know how to make bass distortion sound massive, clear, and controlled. Let's check it out. For years, distortion was the guitarist's playground. When bassists tried it, it usually meant one thing: lost low end. Early guitar distortion pedals like the Ibanez Tube Screamer or the OCD Overdrive rolled everything off around about 150 Hertz. Now on guitar, that's great, but on the bass, that's your entire foundation of sound pretty well cut out. But if you do want dirt and overdrive in your bass sound, and you know, who doesn't, then bass-specific pedals and modern gear like the Line 6 Helix finally let us distort smart. Blending clean lows, filtering the right frequencies, and shaping tone for mixed clarity. I'm Twisty, and today I'm going to walk you through what distortion does to your bass signal, how to use a HX drive model the right way, and how to build a distortion that still sounds like bass patch from scratch. The real issue with using guitar effects pedals, specifically overdrive and distortion and fuzz, is that they're built to remove bass frequencies. Every overdrive and distortion pedal starts with a high pass filter, low cut, before the clipping circuit. That stops the amp from farting out on low notes, which is great for guitar, but catastrophic for us bass players. So if I play, doesn't sound too good. See how the low end disappears? Well, that's the high pass filter doing its job, but it's doing it too well for us. Losing the bottom end isn't the only problem you face. When you clip the full range of the bass signal, you also create odd harmonics that fight the kick drum and also mask your mids. This is why you tend to get lost completely in the mix with no bottom end. So it's not just about losing lows, it's about losing the space in the mix. So the trick isn't to avoid using distortion and overdrive, but it's to control it. Let's jump onto HX Edit and we'll go through and build a patch and see what the effects are like. So I'm using my BB734A. It's in active mode, but it's set pretty well flat. And I've got the P pickup slightly on more than the jazz pickup. I've got a pretty basic patch going on here. It's basically just compressor. I've got 3 overdrives to look at. And then I've got an SVT4 Pro, which is my favorite, set as I like it. Mids pushed a little bit, ultra low and ultra high on. And I'm using a 4x10, but I'm using it with 2 mics, a 57 and a 421. So that's going to give me a bit of an all-round sound. So without any overdrive on it, this is the relatively clean sound that I want to use for my performance. So nice and clean, there's no grit in there. You can see the drive on the amps pushed all the way down. So let's have a look at putting on a standard overdrive. So this is the compulsive drive, which is basically the OCD overdrive pedal, which you find on a lot of guitar players' pedal boards. So this is what happens when I just put that on at the front of the mix. Not a lot of bottom end in there, and you can see it's the mids have basically been washed completely away. What I can look at doing then is replacing that, if that's what you want to do, with one of the designed for bass effects pedals. There's a couple of them on there, and one of the ones I'm going to go through is the Clawthorn pedal. What makes this great is the frequencies on the pedal have been aimed at bass players, so you're not losing that below 150 hertz sound anymore, so the frequency adjusted. And it also has a bass boost. So just with the overdrive on, so you've still got that bottom end coming through. It's not clean, but it's there. This is really cool because it also has a fuzz function, so you can add the fuzz to it. Gives you a bit more bite to the sound with that. And the other really cool feature is you can then put an octave on the fuzz, which is just ridiculous. So that's not bad, right? You're not losing that bottom end as much, and you're able to tune that in. The third common design for bass overdrive that's in the Helix that I'm going to show you is the Obsidian, which is the Dark Glass B7K. What makes this unique is that apart from all of the EQing that you can do on this pedal, it also has a blend knob. And the blend means the clean signal will always stay at unity, but you can then dial in the distortion volume to blend the distortion or the overdrive with that clean signal. So if you're buying the pedal by itself, this is a really good option because not only does it have frequencies designed around the bass, it also allows you to blend in the clean signal. To me, that sounds a lot warmer, but it's also probably the way I've got that configured. Also, if you check out the video above where I've compared the Billy Sheehan Ultra bass pedal with the Busy One amp model on the Helix, you can see that you can also use a preamp as an overdrive pedal and get a similar type of sound. Now that's all very well if you want a very simple signal chain, but as you can see, it means I can't use a guitar distortion pedal, really, and I don't have that much control over that overdrive sound. I can dial in some of it with the Obsidian, but it's not really that controllable. So there's a better option we can look at. If we create a second path or a parallel path and we put the overdrive pedal on that parallel path, what we can do is we can set a frequency split crossover at 150 hertz, which is where most pedals, or most guitar pedals, are cutting off anyway. So if we send all of the frequencies that are above 150 hertz down to the overdrive path and keep all of the below 150 hertz foundational bass tone clean, the distortion or the overdrive pedal is allowed to work harder on those upper frequencies, which gives you that raspy buzz that you're looking for, but maintaining the clean underpinning bass tone that you've got from your bass tone. So if we look at the clawthorn now, I've split that and I've just dropped the clawthorn down on a separate path. What I'm then doing is I'm mixing that with the mixer at the end of the split. Now think of that like the faders on a mixing desk. I can use that to blend in those drive signals, the drive with the clean. This is much more control than I have with just trying to use the mix on the pedal itself. Now, because I'm using this as without trying to blend it with the pedal, I've pushed the overdrive level to 10. Now I can also push the gain up and I can play around with this and make this as aggressive as I like, because I'm then going to mix it and blend it towards the end. I've dropped the signal back about 14 decibels. So I've got more clean coming through than I have low, and then I can just play around with that. So you can see by changing that blend and then probably adjusting the clean path as well. If I'm dropping all that distortion off, I should probably bump up the underlying one. But playing around with that blend allows me to blend that right in and get the tone exactly how I want, so that the clean is always there and the overdrive is just adding tonal character rather than being everything. This is the same concept that Billy Sheehan uses on his dual basses, and his Ultra pedal has the same idea. The clean signal comes in and you still blend the clean signal with the overdrive. The same with the B7K. Speaking of the B7K, if we now look at how that gets treated in a similar way, I'm pushing the level up, I'm pushing the blend up because I just want as much distortion as I can get. But what about our OCD drive again? Well, if we have a look at that compulsive drive, I've done the same trick. I've moved it to its own path, so it's now only distorting anything above 150 Hertz. I have blended it in, and let's see how that sounds. Far more usable now. So this means that I could probably use any other of my favorite guitar pedals using it this way and then blending it as I like. So the last trick, because I'm using this through a modeler and I don't have anything else on that path other than the distortion pedal, I'm getting a little bit of fuzz. Not the distortion part, but there's some high end that's not being cut off. Now, if I was running this into the amp like I did on my previous examples, then the cabinet and the amp are EQing that and getting rid of it. But because I now have that on that one path by itself, I've got a bit of artifacts coming through. So a trick I can use is I can add a parametric EQ. Now what I'm adding is a low cut at 45 Hertz and a high cut at around 7K. Now on my amps, I normally run those amps with between 45 and 50 Hertz and a 5K cutoff. So effectively what I'm doing is I'm treating this EQ a bit like my cabinet. The only other thing I'm doing is I'm bumping the 800 Hertz at around +3. Now, you can play around with this to get the tone how you like, and you may have to adjust specifically on the Obsidian, you may need to adjust the EQ on that so that, or the tone controls on that, so that it matches better. But if I play this through that OCD, you'll start to hear that the top end is a bit more tame and it's a little less muddy at the bottom. And without it, hear how it sounds like there's a bunch of B's on that one, but when I put the EQ in, I'm really just getting that overdrive sound. And I can do the same on the other drives. If I go back and look at the Clawthorn, and I add an EQ to that, so without the EQ, you can hear just that top end. And again, the Obsidian, so without the EQ, and then with the EQ, now because on this path we have cut all of the signal below 150 Hertz, that low cut on the EQ isn't really going to do much. But it's there because I do that by default, thinking it's a cabinet. It's the high pass or the high cut, which is the one that's caking out that top end buzz. So if you don't set that low cut at 45 and you leave that off, it's not going to affect you too much. But out of force of habit, I try to put that in because that's what I cut out to keep away from the kick drum. The other thing you could try instead of an EQ is a cabinet block and set the low pass, high pass filter on the cabinet block. The cabinet will then act like an EQ and give you some tone. So try that out. Let me know how you go. So that's the truth about bass distortion. It's not about cranking the gain, it's about shaping the signal. Clean lows, focused mids, tamed highs. And that's how you get that real amp energy inside your Line 6 Helix. And don't forget that secret EQ of low pass, high cut filter on the parametric EQ after the distortion. Or add a cab. Let me know in the comments below which way you went and how it worked out for you. Remember, understanding how each component of your rig works allows it to work as a cohesive system, not just a box of parts. Understanding distortion is fantastic, but understanding where it fits in your signal path and how it affects with your amp and cab is another story. So check out this video next to see how the amplifier works and what it's doing in the chain and how you can work it with your overdrive. Catch ya.